Mute. Hey everybody, how are y'all doing? Thumbs up. I got a commercial plan for y'all. Let's see if I can change that. Okay. All right, guys, good to see everybody. It's Thursday night, which feels like Monday night, which feels like Saturday night, which feels like any night right now to me. You guys might be experiencing Groundhog Day too, but I'm super excited about tonight because we're going to talk about some of the tricks and strategies to make what we were talking about on Monday come to life. But first, I wanted to, everyone's on unmute on my side. And so I want to just start off with, if anyone wants to share kind of, if they outline, we talked about your why and why it's important to eat healthy now. Again, we're talking a little bit more about mental health than just performance and weight loss. And so I wanted to hear from you guys and how that, if you outlined your why a little bit more this week, if it changed any of your actions, and then an audit of your kitchen and your pantry, and then the food list that we talked about, traffic light eating, that kind of green, yellow, red. And so I would love to hear if you guys did that, if you noticed anything that was hidden in your pantry that you had forgotten was there, or kind of what your experience was if you got to take part in some of those action items after Monday night. Everybody had a totally clean kitchen. Awesome. Okay. What about the traffic light eating, that red, yellow, and green? Had anybody done that before, or was that something that kind of helped narrow down some items that were there and they shouldn't be, or maybe some things that you should put away and hide that were kind of triggers for snacking or overeating? Was there any kind of any ahas with that? And again, some of it might be stuff that you've done before, but no matter where you are, I think hearing those same basic things again can be heard a little bit different each time. Is there anybody that wanted to share their experience?
Here, I will. I can tell you, unlike most people, I'm still working 50 hours a week. And I'll show you my kitchen because it's still meal prepped in my refrigerator, as you can see. Everything's still ready for lunch.
Awesome. Yeah.
But there's 4 bottles of wine in there. And that's probably the worst thing that I could have. And I don't drink it a lot, but now I come home and I've been at work all day, stressing, trying to keep people employed. And now I'm sitting at home. But I do have this, so it's something to look forward to other than the TV and a glass of wine at night. But that's probably my big red stop sign is the wine.
Okay. We'll talk about some strategies on how to keep that in your house and not derail everything that you're working for.
So I can go next. Hi guys, my name is Nancy. So I went through my pantry, and to be honest, I only found 3 things that are really red. It's soy sauce, sugar. I usually buy a pound of sugar and it lasts me about a year to a year and a half. And then corn chips. So I am not, I don't snack. I only have my 3 meals a day, sometimes just 2 meals. And I may have, I don't know, grapefruit juice during the day and then my protein shake. So, but the problem is, so I am from the Caribbean. I love fried food. So I eat plantains. If you give me a sandwich, I will not eat the sandwich. I'd rather have plantains, which are great. They're good in potassium, but they're high in carbs. But then when I want to snack and I feel like I want to go really bad, I deep fry them in coconut oil. So that, I think that is my downside. You know, I have good food, but sometimes when I go bad, I go really bad. And it's not often, but you know, we're human. So yeah, I would say that was the worst thing I found.
Okay, not bad. That's not bad at all.
I can totally relate to most of that. I got an email late yesterday that said that we were going to be working from home until August 15th now.
Wow.
And I work for like a I work for a satellite center of a college, and so I'm used to really like being very social and having students and instructors and stuff in and out of my office. So being homebound was not easy, and getting that email. I had a few sugar cookies, but they found the trash can today.
Congrats.
I have a
Johnny,
husband
you're
and a daughter.
also dealing with, or not dealing with, you're also homeschooling some kids, yes?
No, my daughter's 19, so she's in college, so she's doing her courses through Zoom, and that's what we are using through, because she goes to college with the one that I work at. So I'm not having to homeschool her, but I was just stress eating because I'm going to be home for 4 more months, and I don't like it.
Yeah.
But I threw them away. They went in the trash, out of the house today.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, so tonight we're going to talk about some of the things that will help us stay on track, right? So it's like defining the why, what are we up to? Maybe thinking about it in a new way, in a different way than what we thought about in the past, especially since just the mind game and the mental challenge of this is completely different. And so now we're going to talk about some of the how.
So Lisa, I have a question.
Sure.
So we're human, right? And we're creatures of habit. So, I mean, is it possible for us to have these rules about, okay, don't go to these foods? Is it okay to include, like, I don't know, maybe once a month you can have cookies, or 2 times a month? Like, would that work? Or is it just cold turkey?
It's not cold turkey. I don't believe in cold turkey. I don't believe in a strict food list unless you came to me with some real specific goals or allergies. Those goals would be something like body composition with a timeline, 6 weeks out to your wedding, that sort of thing. I really believe in teaching balance and how you can keep those red foods around. And tonight, you know, specifically with the way that we are positioned right now, I want to think about strategies to where when you're enjoying those foods, you're really enjoying them rather than going to them because you just found out you're at home for the next 4 months, or because you're bored, or you know, whatever it might be for entertainment. So I absolutely think those, and I'm going to talk a little bit about rules, you know, rules, if you will, and everybody's rules are going to be different. And this, and is it Nancy's? Is that how you say your name?
Yes.
Those rules are going to be different for everyone, but that's where you can kind of reflect on the things that we're talking about and then decide how it looks for you. And so, you know,
Lisa, so my big thing is I like to bake, and I like to bake for my family because it's like my way of sharing my love and I don't buy a lot of packaged foods for them. So like I will make their granola bars, or I will make their cookies, or I will make the things that I want them to eat. And I kind of find that that's my way of showing my love for them, my care for them. I can tweak recipes so I can lessen how much sugar's in it, and I can, but that's just kind of my thing. I like to bake.
yeah. Do you then also like to eat the things you bake?
Of course.
Baking is one thing, but like, anyway.
But like
yeah.
yesterday I made sweet potato breakfast cookies. So
Wow.
you know, I hide like sweet potatoes in them, and they by default end up being vegan, but the sugar is natural, you know, it's maple syrup and all that. So, but it's still sugar. I mean, whether, you know, and so I can lessen the amounts and things like that. But yeah. And my new hobby is, I think I'm trying to learn how to bake bread from scratch. Like I have my own starters going in the cupboard right now. Like I'm like watching YouTube videos, and yeah.
So what about that? So what quality food first, we talked about that on Monday, right? So quality ingredients, you're using high quality things. The more you can sub and kind of make them, whether it's paleo, gluten-free, vegan, whatever it might be, those are going to increase the nutrient density of it. And then we need carbs, protein, and fat, right? And so you, I know, have some experience with macros, and figuring out how to kind of fit that into your macros, if you will. The other piece of that is, are you eating them and enjoying that, or is it are you going to that because of stress or because of boredom or because they have a triggering response where you want more and more and more? So if I have a bread roll, one is fine, but I always want more than one bread roll. So I know that that's kind of a trigger food for me personally, and everybody's going to have their trigger foods. And so it's less about baking and eating it and more about how you can fit it in, and if you're eating it for the right reasons, because we should be able to enjoy all of the good foods. It's just a matter of what our mind is doing and what the reason is behind us going after that food. And so I'm going to dive in tonight with here. All right, so just kind of a reminder that we have tonight and then next week, Monday and Thursday at 7 p.m. as well, and we'll go over kind of what we're going to do in those. But tonight I want to talk about tools and strategies, triggers, kind of some of that same stuff about how to be healthy now. And so when I think about being healthy, whatever our goal is, whatever that, that pyramid that we saw last week, and we looked and we're like, what is our goal right now? It depends on if you're Jill working 50 hours or if I think Bianca is on here, she has an exorbitant amount of time that she doesn't normally have, and she's not working right now. So no matter what camp you're in, we need a plan. So, keep it super simple. The plan is quality foods first, and I have PFC next to it. That is protein, fat, carb, protein, fat, carb. So you can see the plate that we have laid out. Those are some ideals: 30% protein, 40% carbs, 30% fat. I'm not going to dive too much into specific numbers, but that you need a plan for yourself that it looks like that on some level. And why are those numbers important? Why do I say protein, fat, carb? Well, if you joined on Monday, you saw the graph that showed the insulin spike and then the deep dive and kind of that up, down that happens. Whoops. Somebody had a comment. I was but anyway, here we go. So having that protein, fat, carb is important because it keeps your blood sugar level, right? And it keeps you from being hungry. It keeps you satiated longer. It also kind of transitions your body into being more fat dependent versus just carb dependent. And so let's see, I see Jill on here. Can you see the question or the chat that's on the screen if I leave my screen the way it is? Okay, awesome. So when we talk about protein, we're talking about most of the time some sort of something that had a face, for lack of a better way of saying it, right? So a fish, a chicken, steak, pork, that sort of thing. We also have beans, we have nuts and seeds. A lot of those things have protein. There are a lot of vegan options that have protein. That's specifically kind of what we're talking about here. Fat is defined nuts, nut butter, oils, avocado. If you looked at the email that was sent out after Monday night, that you had an entire food chart and list, and hopefully that was not too overwhelming, but it helps you kind of break down things, right? So if you want a fat, a protein, and carb every single time you eat, you can go back and refer to that food list. So the plan has to include the quality food, right? That's first and foremost. And then we're going to look at the quantity of food that you need. And that's going to depend on your activity. That's going to depend on your age. That's going to depend on your goals. That's going to depend on, really a lot of your lifestyle. And so that might be something that you need to play around with. And so all of these slides tonight, I want to kind of balance between information and action, because information is awesome. But again, we want it to be in bite-sized pieces that you can take action on. And so if it seems like I'm going light on some things, that's where you can email me, ask me some questions. We can talk about how to dive a little bit deeper. But your plan needs to include quality foods, right? Protein, fat, carb. You understand what that is and how to get them. Quantity of food. So how much you need for your specific goals and for your specific activity level. And then we're going to do that cooking class on Monday, because I think that a lot of times, like I said, you can follow a recipe, but you're not sure how to just put things together generally. And that plate a meal and a meal plan kind of comes in that same category, right? So you need to be familiar or at least have a consciousness about how you're putting together your plate. And that plate picture, I think, is really great because when we sit down to eat, you can kind of picture the portions in there. Casseroles, your beans and rice mixed with some things. I don't know how to put those into categories, but for the most part, we can kind of portion out our plate and have that kind of in mind with everything that we eat. Every single time we put something together, we want to think about fat, protein, carb, and high quality, right? If you do that and drink half your body weight in ounces of water, you're going to be ahead of the game and you're going to be doing awesome. And you'll probably have some results because you're going to be conscious of what you're doing. So having your plan is first and foremost. And that's going to look different for everybody, where you're coming from, where you are, what your red foods are, what your preferences are, what your allergies are. And that's going to be very personal, as is the quality of food. Now, I want to talk a little bit about identifying your triggers. So identifying your triggers, they might be a little bit different than it is right now, right? So for me, triggers are, I love sugar. I love sugar, and I don't like good sugar like probably Becky would make. I like H-E-B, store-bought cake, and just the frosting. Like that is kind of a thing for me. So I know triggers for me are anytime that I get access to that kind of like super refined sugars. I know I have an eating disorder, come from an eating disorder background, spent 15 plus years, 20 years anorexic and bulimic. And I have a lot of experience identifying my triggers. And while most of them aren't prevalent now, I spent a lot of time knowing like I can be at a party for 2 hours, but if I'm at a party for 3 hours, then my willpower is gone and I'm going to start doing things I don't want to do. I can be at one Thanksgiving meal, but if I have to go to 2 or 3 Thanksgiving meals, then that's going to set me up for failure. I know that I used to travel for my job a lot. And these examples are, again, not about me, but hoping to relate to something that you're experiencing. But I would travel a lot for my job. And if I would feel particularly lonely and end up in a hotel by myself, well, one more night, that would be a trigger for me. And I would turn to food. So it's like noticing, and it took a while to identify, oh, it's loneliness. It's maybe why you turn to food. Maybe kind of what your triggers are. Maybe right now it's boredom and you didn't realize that was a trigger, except for now that you're working 50 hours a week at home, you have access to your meals and your food. It looks like Jill had prepped her meal, already kind of planned it, which is one of the things I'm going to talk about tonight. If it's working for you, keep it going if we can. But identifying your triggers right now: anxiety, stress, boredom. Maybe you have access to that wine and then that triggers you wanting a midnight snack. What is it that you need to kind of be aware of? What's up? Okay, go ask your dad if he can help you. Thanks. Identifying them won't change what you're up to all the time, but identifying will bring a new awareness, and that's one step closer. And once you know something, you can't turn back, right? So if you can look at this and have a plan, maybe you already have a plan. Maybe you're looking at this and you're like, I have quality foods. I know how much I need to eat. I know how to plate my meal. I have a meal plan. I've got it all mapped out because I need a grocery list, because now we're only going to the grocery store like once every 2 weeks or once a week, or maybe you're ordering it online, and you even are aware of your triggers and what's happening. But you know what? Whoa, there we go. It blows up. Your plan is going to blow up at some point, right? Because we're human, because this is a different time, because this is something that we're not used to being at. We're not used to being at home as much. We're not maybe used to cooking as much. Whatever it is that's going to blow your plan up, I want to kind of think about 3 or 4 things, kind of categories of things that we can do to be healthy. How, right? So how are we going to stay on that plan that we have? And the first thing I want to talk about is a routine. And so this is really, that foundation for a lot of us. So even if we weren't super structured, we all had a routine before COVID-19. Even if we weren't super regimented every single day with our timeline, we did have kind of an ebb and flow. And a lot of us haven't been able to figure that out, or we're just now figuring that out. And I think that it is a good time for us to kind of assess what we need and how much structure we need. So I've worked with folks even over the last couple of weeks. Some people want a stringent timeline. I think right when we all first got, shelter in place, we might have seen the color-coded hour-by-hour charts. If you're a mom, a lot of us got those sent out to try and help with your kids. It's like sometimes that works for your household, and sometimes that'll make you crazy to have that much structure. So you kind of need to know what that is. But having your routine in place, keep things that were working for you Like keep calm and control the controllables. That's what that is. If it was working for you before that, and it's something that you can continue before COVID-19, before we were all at home, then continue with that. Don't start something new if it's going to change something that's been working for you and you've already got it in place. So I know it's how Jill had meal plans and stuff prepped in her closet or her refrigerator. I know Becky did this, but she packed her lunch like she's going to work. Like, I'm going to pack my snacks, I'm going to pack my lunch like I'm going to work. For our household, I've had to plan dinners because for grocery shopping, just we're eating a lot more at home, and planning the dinners has not only saved money at the grocery store, but it's also made the question of what are we having for dinner and kind of the prep time a lot easier. So if that's something that you were doing before, keep it going. Just because we have the freedom of time or the flexibility of being in our house doesn't mean that we should give up a lot of those foundational routines and regimens. So I really recommend having a written plan. So create the times that you're going to eat. Someone earlier when we were chatting said they have 3 meals a day. They don't really snack a whole lot. Awesome. Do you have them written on your refrigerator so you know what time you're having them? Is it something that you're still able to stick to? And again, lots of ideas. You're going to hear hopefully something, 1 or 2 that are going to stick with you and are going to be appropriate for where you are right now. I have a 7 and a 4-year-old, and so we like alarms on my phone. And so if you hear this alarm, you know it's time for breakfast. If you hear this alarm, you know it's time for going outside. And that helps. They don't understand 15 minutes, 12 o'clock, 2:30, 30 minutes, 45 minutes. So it makes it a very audible, easy way to know what's next. And so maybe that would work for you. I know when I was in the past, if I was on a timeline for supplements or timeline for meals because of competitions and that sort of thing, alarms are something that keep me in place. And so as much rigor and routine as we can get and create within our day, I feel like the more success we're going to have. So you're laying that foundation to keep the things that you can control controllable, but with the flexibility that's going to keep you sane. And so only you know how flexible you need to stay sane. We talked about prepping meals, packing lunches and snacks, all of that stuff that was a part of your routine for success in the past should continue to be a part of your plan on how you're going to be healthy right now, right? So it might look a little bit different than it did 3 weeks ago, but you're still going to have that same rigor and routine. And hopefully that will be with you for help with your family too. So if it's more than just you in your household. So routine, that's one of the foundation of a lot of this. After you have your plan in place, let's figure out what kind of routine you need to keep that plan going. Because I can have a plan, but if I don't have a routine to make that happen or a plan for the plan to happen, then it probably isn't going to. And then one of the biggest things I think right now, if this is a new environment and a new situation for you, being at home all the time, environment is everything, right? And so some things that I posted, if you're a part of that nutrition Facebook or the Liftoff Go, I've talked a little bit about environmental makeovers because I truly believe that environment is everything. If we can keep our brain on the right track, then we're going to have a lot more success than if we have a lot of clutter or things that are going to pull us in the direction that we're not trying to go. And so kitchen clutter. So that can be anything. That can just be having an untidy kitchen, and that can also include having snacks out, having things out on the counter. And so one of the number 1 ways to keep from grabbing those snacks is to hide them. So whether that means putting them up super high, I think I mentioned this on Monday, Whitney said she puts her snacks up so high she has to get a ladder. She also just had knee surgery, so we know that's extra tough for her to get those snacks. I have things, Jeremy always laughs because he'll dig in the freezer and I've got like all my chocolate in the back of the freezer frozen because you can't eat it as fast if it's frozen and it's in the back so you can't see it. So whatever it is for you, but take a look, and hopefully we did that when you audited your kitchen earlier this week. But when you open your refrigerator, Jill showed us a really great example of she's got packaged or prepped meals, she's got containers. If you look in mine, eye level is going to be fruit. It's going to be, we've got some cheese sticks. We've got some easy, healthy things that the kids can grab. And then in the back are the things that are a little bit more treat worthy, or we have gluten-free bread or bread. And I put that in the back because when I go in there for lunchtime and I want to make lunch, but I see the bread up front first, then maybe I just grab a piece of bread and put some peanut butter on it, and that's easier. But then it doesn't fall in line with my plan that I just went into. So, little things like that will go a long way. because our eye's going to go to what is there first. And having lunches prepped right now might sound crazy, but I guarantee you it's going to be a game changer. If that's something that you have the capability of doing or have played around with in the past or did when you were going to work, having lunch prepped is going to be a game changer, because you're not going to have to think about anything. You're not going to get distracted, and you're going to be able to stay, task and focus on point. It's also going to be a time saver. So if you are somebody who is working and with young kids trying to homeschool them, or just working in a different environment, a lot of us are still very busy. So keeping that same routine is going to be a game changer. Something that I'm guilty of and have tried to get better about is where my workstation is. And so we've got our computers, we've got our phones. How many of us are in a place where we can see food, we can see the cabinet, we can see the refrigerator, right? So yeah, a few of us. And I mean, right now we're not in our regular house. We have a little bit larger house, but in my regular house, I can't really go anywhere and not see the kitchen. And so that might be something that you're experiencing too. Totally cool. But my suggestion is to turn around, turn away, or do whatever you can to get in a position where you cannot view the kitchen. Because if I get here, I'm working on my computer for an hour and a half, I want to get up, stretch around, maybe my Apple Watch says stand up, it's time to go do something and breathe, and I am an arm's length away from the kitchen, I'm probably going to go in there and grab something. So the way that your kitchen is laid out, and then also where we're working. Do we have a very specific workstation? How are we still kind of creating those spaces in our home? One is for food, one is for sleep, one is for work, or are they kind of all meshed together? That will make a huge difference. And then the last thing, and I think I talked a little bit about this with the red foods or on Monday, having screens and food together is a surefire way to eat things that you don't mean to, whether it's quantity or items, right? So whether it's having your phone, having your iPad, if you're mindlessly watching a movie and shoveling popcorn into your mouth versus having a bowl of popcorn there where you can pay attention to what you're up to. Food and screens are not the best thing to mix if you're looking to stay on point, which you're motivated because you're on here to hear kind of some strategies and suggestions. So again, environment is everything. Go look at the clutter, see where you have snacks out, see if you have fruit that's accessible, see if you have some healthy options that are right there, see the things that may not be a red to everybody, but are a red to you. Or even like the bread is not necessarily a red, but if it's there and easily accessible, I'm going to grab that when I go in for lunch. So kind of take a look at your kitchen this week with the new eye of how can you make those things less accessible and have the things that you want to grab up front and ready to go. And then, the mind game, right? So we kind of talk about, you've got your plan, let's get your routine in place, environment, we can set some things up. And again, all of that is awesome. But those pictures, the picture of the explosion can still happen. And I think that what happens in between these 2 years is more powerful than any of the things that we just went through, right? So you can have your whole house set up, you can have your plan written, you can have everything ready to go. And if you don't have your mind ready for the things that come at it, then it's going to be really hard to stay on track. And so this is where I talk about, we're talking about the rules. So one of the strategies that I use with the nutrition coaching is having people kind of lay out the rules for themselves. And it's going to be super different for everybody. Everybody is going to have a different set of rules. It's going to depend on what your goals are. It's going to depend on kind of where you're coming from. An example that I use is 10 or 15 years ago, when I first met Jeremy and Carrie, every time I came to a gathering, I would bring a big bag of trail mix, the good kind with all the M&Ms and all the like sweetness as well as the salty, right? And at one point, one of the coaches said something about me being addicted to trail mix. And I was like, I'm not addicted to trail mix. What are you talking about? Well, so I had a rule that I couldn't have certain things, but trail mix was okay. And then it opened my eyes to things that maybe I was, had substitutions for. And then so you start to put rules around, okay, well, I can have trail mix, but when am I going to have it and how much am I going to have? Okay, I can have wine. Well, how much am I going to have and when am I going to have it? So knowing what your triggers are, knowing what your go-tos are, and then creating some of that flex so it doesn't have to be so black and white. So you can have a little bit of, I was trying to get a chat, not that. You can have a little bit of the good stuff with guilty. Yeah, trail mix. I hear you. It's one of those things. My daughter's on it too, Todd. I feel ya. Sweet and salty, it's all the good things. But having some boundaries around what you're up to. It doesn't have to be all or nothing. It can be once or twice a week. I know I have an accountability group right now, and the group is so awesome because they're not just sharing the good stuff, but they're sharing kind of the slip ups too. And if there's anyone on here that thinks that somebody has been perfect for 3 weeks in solitude and in being at home and not had something that they didn't want to eat or not had too much of something, then you're crazy, because we all are human and we all are going to do that. And so it was a really fun experience to see someone kind of say, hey, I have a confession, this is what happened. And I was like, yep, okay, well, we're all human, and so what are your rules around that? And a couple people shared, like, my rule is 2 nights a week I'm going to have wine, the other nights no, because I want a clear mind. I want to be ready to go. I don't want to be depending on that to get through the stress or the anxiety of things. So having rules around things like your fried plantains, enjoy them, but when are we going to enjoy them? You know, having rules around baked goods. Okay, you made them. How many do you get? Are you going to have? How many are you going to share? Is it going to be one a day? You know, and that's a lot of the coaching that I do starts with that sort of thing. All right, well, what are you going to do? I'm going to cut down from 5 sodas to 2 sodas a day. Okay, awesome. I'm going to go from a sweet after every meal to just a sweet after dinner. And that might not apply to you. I know a lot of you ladies and gentlemen on here, and you're healthy already. You already have some great foundations, but you need to take that same philosophy, or you can take that same philosophy and kind of apply it to where you are. Reward yourself. So it's really easy to reward ourselves with food. So I suggest, if you are someone who is motivated by star charts and rewards and that sort of thing, to figure out some way, something that you're going to go do when we can do that. If it's having coffee with someone, if it's maybe it's an online shop, so maybe it's grabbing something from an online shop. But figure out a way to reward yourself for doing well and making choices, rather than punishing yourself when we kind of break our own rules or do something that we don't want to. And so all of this is that positive mindset. It's about how to play the mental game that is more rewarding than limiting. So I have on here the urge jar. And I don't know if I've shared with this group, but it's something that rewards you for denying yourself a snack or a treat or a something, right? So maybe let's say that I'm guilty of spoons of peanut butter when I'm bored, go through, open the pantry, grab one, walk on through. All right, so I can do that. And at the end of the day, I can be really mad because I did that 7 times or 10 times or 5 times or whatever it is. And I can, tell my coach, hey, I messed up today because I did this, this, and this, and that. And that creates this like negative thought pattern. It changes the chemicals that are the cortisol reaction. It changes the way that I'm considering myself, versus I have an urge jar. And every time I go to the kitchen or walk by the kitchen and want a spoonful of peanut butter, but I don't grab it, I put a penny in there or a bead in there or a bean in there or what have you. And then you have a visual way to see all of the times that you've been successful, even though the success is the deficit of something. Does that make sense? So the deficit of me not having the peanut butter, I can see as a success in that urge jar. So some of us are really triggered by that sort of thing. So if that's something that would work for you, consider it. It's also kind of like, hey, I'm going to every morning put a gratitude in my gratitude jar, a gratitude in my gratitude jar. And then you can remind yourself on the times when you're having a low day or you don't feel like much is going well, go back to that gratitude jar. So it's the same kind of idea, only linked to food and linked to food choices. Maybe it's that you have a salad for dinner when you really wanted to make macaroni and cheese. Maybe it's that you cooked 2 vegetables instead of a potato and a vegetable. Potatoes, again, are fine, but it depends on what your goals are, right? So figure out a way to reward yourself. So we're all starting to create the structure and rules for ourselves, and then a way to succeed with them. Man. I love that y'all have chat stuff, but I'm just not very good at that part yet. What do we have? Urge jar. Well, I'm glad it's working for you, Connie. And Connie, I know you're crushing it right now. I love seeing and hearing from people it's not easy for any of us what we're up to right now. And Connie's been somebody that's been really great at sharing kind of the struggles and the successes. So I think that's important to do because we're not all just crushing it. We have some ups and downs, and hopefully these are some things that can help with those ups and downs. And then the last one for the mindset, that is my favorite. It's change your state, right? So anybody that's familiar with Tony Robbins, he talks about to change your life, you have to change your physiology. To change your physiology, you have to change your state. And he kind of goes through a series of ways to do that. If you've been around CrossFit Central long enough, you may have seen the coaches, somebody say, make your move, and then everybody, does something silly. But it is really about how in an instant can you go from one state to the next. Because a lot of times when we're wanting to go for that snack or wanting to make a choice that isn't on our plan, it's not really about wanting it. It's an instant gratification. And if we can change our state, we can get out of that space. So it's like, okay, I want to have some wine tonight. It's a rainy night. We're sitting on the porch. Well, do I really? Okay, nope, that wasn't a part of my rule or the part of my plan. How can I change my state and make that decide to do something different? It might just be getting up and walking away and coming back in the room. An alternate activity. Earlier, when this first started happening, I was having a lot more anxiety. Now we're kind of like calming into the rhythm of things. There are worries, but for some reason I'm able to manage them more than I was in the first week. And Jeremy and I kind of decided that anytime anxiety, fear, boredom, anything got out of control, that we were going to do, air squats and burpees. Not a lot, but enough to be like, okay, shake it out. Now, am I still anxious, or can I bring that anxiety down to a level that makes sense? Okay, do I still want to have a glass of wine, or no, that was just a passing thing because I wasn't ready to deal with something else? Alternate activities can be anything. Play a game. This goes back to IDing what are your triggers, right? So if boredom is your trigger and you start going into the kitchen and you realize, okay, that's not what I want to do, then what game are you going to play? Okay, what friend are you going to call? What book are you going to grab? So alternate activities are all of those, or maybe it's just do your Tony Robbins move, right? Let's change your state and get on to what's next. But you've got to figure out something that works for you with all of this stuff. And I think that the mindset and the mental game is huge. Environment is everything, mindset, and then who's on your team, right? Who's on your team? I mean, all of us on here are on a team together. I'm on your team. I want to help you. I want to keep you accountable. If Shauna starts texting me and telling me that she's going off the deep end with X, Y, and Z and can't figure out what to do on Friday night because this is happening, you know what? I love that. I love it because I love being able to share what I hopefully have an answer for or know or some experience with and helping someone else. And it might not even be something that I know and Shauna doesn't know, but if she's in one state, I'm going to help her get into another state. And you need a team that's going to help you do that. So we all need accountability. Accountability is the glue that ties commitment to results. So if you want to get somewhere, we're going to be better together, right? So all of those things, I know we have 100 slogans we could talk about, but it truly is about community and about teamwork and about who are you sharing your goals with and who's checking in with you to see not just are you doing okay, but specifically, you know what, Becky, you said you were going to work out 4 days a week. I haven't seen you on the Zooms. Have you been able to get out and go for a run? Have you been on your bike? What have you been up to? You know what, Jill, you mentioned, I'm just going to say your wine, not that it's a problem, but you mentioned it. So, hey, you said that you had the 4 bottles in here. What is your goal with that? What's going to help you stay on point? And then, and they can do the same for you, right? So who's on your team? Is it your friends? Is it your family? Or do you have a coach that you're working with? Everybody needs a coach. We all need coaches at different times for different things. And we can't do this alone. So it's interesting because getting to work with people with nutrition over the last few years, right now, I had people who 3 weeks ago had one goal and they're sending me all these other goals and telling me, okay, before I said I could do this, now you tell me when you see my food log not to do this anymore. And it's ever changing, right? But we definitely need people who are on our team and who can help us with that accountability. So I love to kind of recap and go back through. So I'm going to do that real quick. Right? So your plan, right? So I want you to think about yourself and think about, are you someone who has a plan and knows exactly where you need to be, what you need to eat, how it needs to look, and you know what your triggers are? Or do you need somebody to help you with strategies, to help you create those rules for yourself, and to help you know exactly what you need to do to fuel your body? You might be on either one of those, but just kind of think about where you are with that plan. Routine, right? A few weeks ago, I tried to be super stringent. We realized it's not the way to go. We need to have some flexibility with a general plan for the day. Okay, so now I know that about myself and my family in this situation. I also know I need to do a grocery list, have some go-to meals. Go-to meals meaning I'm going to have one of these 3 options for breakfast, and I know they fit my plan. I'm not going to get up and think about all the different things I could have for breakfast. This is it, because this is my goal, and these are my plan, and this is what I want to have. So what are your go-to meals that you don't even have to think about? You've got prepped and ready to go. Environment. Maybe this hits something you're like, you know what? I work on my kitchen counter every single day right now, and I'm looking at the snack counter. Or I have all my kids' stuff easy, accessible. I have stuff I haven't eaten, hopefully not because we audited our kitchen, but something I haven't eaten in a month and a half that's sitting there staring at me. I know I need to get rid of it. So where are you on your environment, are you on your phone and on your screen while you're eating? That'll make a huge difference in digestion and awareness of the quantity in what you're consuming. And then your mind game. Is it time for you to figure out how to change your state? Like, we're not moving from building to building. We're not moving from space to space. How are you changing your state from work state to wife state to mom state to off of work and hanging out state? Because we can't stay in one space too long or we're all going to go crazy. So how are we changing our state? What are our alternate activities, and how can you create some rules or some guidelines? We are talking specifically about nutrition, but this can be a lot of different things, right? So your goal is to work out Monday, Wednesday, Friday, but you know what, Wednesday this happened. Where's your flexibility on that so you don't beat yourself up? And that's really what these rules are about, giving you some leniency to have the things that you enjoy and not having the guilt and the shame that might go around it, because those feelings will pull you into a spiral like nobody's business. So how are you in this area? How is your mindset? Do you need a coach? Do you need some accountability? Do you need somebody that you can share where you are in your mind game or mental game and help pull you in the right direction? And then your team. Hopefully you can think of 3 or 4 people who are automatically on your team and that you can go to. And if not, I suggest creating that or finding that after this call. We're all on here because we want to be better, eat better, do better. You don't necessarily have to know one another in real life or in person on a personal level to have some accountability. So if there's somebody on here that says, I need accountability, then email that nutrition@CrossFit Central, or the emails that I've been sending to you. You can respond directly to me, and let's get some accountability together. A couple of ways that we offer accountability is our Liftoff 90-day plan. So maybe you're thinking like, man, I had some things that were working, but now I realize that I need a whole new level of accountability. And so this Liftoff Nutrition is a 90-day plan. It's one-on-one coaching where I would talk to each of you, create a specific plan for what your needs are, for where you are, for what your activity is. We create success strategies that are specific to you, right? So some general things, but also you're going to tell me what you need the most help with, and we're going to be able to work through that. It's maximum accountability, and we've got weekly check-ins. So this is the highest accountability. This is going to help you if you're at a place where you're like, you know what, now is my time to dial it in and I'm ready to go. Or maybe you are not ready to dial it in, but you know you need consistent weekly check-ins, and this is a plan to consider. And so anyone that is doing this webinar series, we're doing the first 3 months are $136 a month versus the $160. So it's about a 15% discount. It's an awesome deal. I know we have some faces on here who are already doing this program. And it's something that can really help get you where you want to be. And again, we were talking about what's off limits, what's on limits. It's the rate of the speed in which we move depends on what your goals are and where you are. So this was going to be something that's flexible. It's going to promote consistency, and it's going to promote sustainability, because my goal is to have you healthy and in a way that you can be empowered to make choices for yourself. So that's one option, and that's kicking off on April the 20th. And maybe you're like, you know what, 90 days, I don't know about that, but I could definitely do a 21-day quarantine lean program. So this is going to be something that starts also on April 20th. And it's going to be a we're going to have 3 strategy sessions. So we'll do a kickoff, kind of a midpoint, and we're going to do a finale. It's going to be 10 people in a group, and we're going to give personalized plans. We're going to give tools for strategy. We're going to give tools for meal timing. We're going to talk about food lists and grocery lists. We're going to do a lot of the basics. Other than, we won't have those weekly check-ins, but we're going to have those 3 checkpoints. So if you're like, you know what, I have a foundation, but I need a little bit of a push, then this 21-day quarantine lean might be an option for you. The other thing about that is if you decide to do the quarantine lean, then, and you want to continue and you decide to go into the Liftoff Nutrition 3-month program, you'll get the first month at 50% off. So again, just something to consider. And maybe those 2 options are not for you right now, but we all want to walk away with some action steps, because information is awesome, but action is going to get you closer to your goal. The action of just getting on here, I talked to a couple of people and they said, hey, just hearing what you're having to say is making me make different choices. Plugging in and seeing faces, plugging in to a community will already help you make better choices. But the actions for this week, my suggestion is to go in and do an environmental makeover. So where are you working? What does your phone and screen time with the food look like? And are there some things that you need to rearrange or hide or put up on a tall shelf or put up in a loud package or whatever it is that's going to keep you a little bit more on point? That's the first one. I feel like that is one of the most powerful. So I'll put that as number 1. And then this next one, depending on what hit home with you, and you can do all of them, but if you're someone who knows that you need to create a little bit more of a routine because you're looking up and it's 11 o'clock and you haven't eaten breakfast yet, or it's 1 o'clock and the last time you ate was 6 a.m. because you just get sucked into the monotony of home and work in all one space, then I challenge you to create a routine and write it down. Write it down somewhere that you can see it. Maybe that's on your refrigerator, maybe that's on your mirror. Those are kind of our household favorite places to be. Or maybe it's time for you to make your move and you know that you need to work on your mental game. You know you need to come up with some structures around some things that you've been giving yourself excuses, that you've been using maybe this situation as a reason to eat in a way that you don't typically do it. And we need to create some rules and some boundaries. And again, if you need help with that, that's what those other programs are for. Or maybe it's you simply need an alternative thing like squats and burpees. Let's go back to the basics, right? Squats and burpees to change your state and move out of the station or the state where you are in, where you're going to make a choice where you don't want to make. So those are 2 action items. And then we're going to have some raffles and some giveaways. So if you're on this webinar tonight, the raffle entry, you get entered into the raffle simply by emailing nutrition@crossfitcentral.com with your biggest takeaway from the last 2 sessions. And if you're just joining tonight, there's a recording of session 1 that should be in your email, your inbox, right? So your biggest takeaway, and then 1 action item, or if you have a question, right? Because I want to make sure that I'm not just talking, but that I'm also answering the questions that you have. So those are kind of the 3 kind of things to think about between now and we're going to all be cooking together on Monday, right? So you're going to get an email after this that talks a little bit about these 2 program options. It's also going to remind you of your action item. So if you were sitting here and thinking about the ways in which you could use some help in creating your routine, creating your plan, maybe some strategies for mindset change, then think about plugging into one of those options and or just connecting with the people on this webinar, because everyone's here because they want to come out of this ahead of the game versus in the same space, or maybe not even as good as they were when we came into it. So next week, Quarantine Lean versus Quarantine 15, we're going to be cooking with Coach Whitney. So another thing to be looking for in your inbox, I think she said we're doing tacos and sweet potatoes, or tacos in a sweet potato. I don't know. She is a much better cook than I am. She said it was going to be super simple and it's going to be stuff that won't be difficult to get at the grocery store. So you will be getting a list of food. We're going to actually be working in our kitchens and cooking, so prepare for that, right? You can just watch if you'd like to, but it's going to be more fun if everybody's in their kitchen and cooking and we all end up with a nice meal that we can have meal prepped for the next week. And that's going to be Monday at 7. So again, you'll get some reminders of all of that. But right now, I'm going to open it up to questions. So, okay, I think we got it. So now, manage everybody, unmute you all. Okay, so you're all unmuted. If you mute yourself, then you can unmute yourself if you want to say something. I don't know if that's the best way to do it, but that's the way that I know how to do it, so we're going to do that tonight. So any questions or comments or anything that I can help you guys with tonight about owls?
Hey, it's Todd, Lisa. I think the biggest thing for me in the last several days is the why, because you kind of hit it on the head the other day in that, you know, when we're in the gym, there's a whole different set of reasons that we're accustomed to around the nutrition. And I've spent a lot of time on this in the last couple of days. And, you know, when I look back on what I'm doing right now, I want to be proud of it. And I want to be proud of the way that I use the time. And I don't want that to involve beer and Doritos. I want it to involve something that is more meaningful. And, you know, that doesn't mean just because there's not a barbell in my apartment doesn't mean that I have to eat like shit. And I think getting my head around a new and revised why is significant to the effort. Now, if I can just remember to get up from my desk at lunch and eat, I'll be better off. But and I think the why around, you know, making myself get in, you know, my living room and do the work physically is important too. So thank you for helping me retool that.
Yeah, awesome. I love what you said about not having a barbell in your apartment doesn't mean Doritos and beer. I think you said beer. Anyway, we sometimes assume that when we're not working out, we would want to be more motivated to eat better. But what I find is that it's the exact opposite. We're either in line with both. And when one goes, the other one goes. And I just am such a strong believer that nutrition is the foundation for mental health, for energy, for clarity. And we all want to have that when we're going through this and then come out on the other side. So I just commend you, Todd, for making that a priority. And then I see a question about calorie intake. So that's where that quantity comes into your plan, right? So yes, we should think about calorie intake. So I kind of think about 3 different levels. We've got quality food, and getting your quality food high is first and foremost. And then you want to think about the energy that's going out and the energy that's coming in versus calories out versus calories in, and what your goal is and making that match. And so that would be part of something that we could help you create a specific plan for how many you need, how much you need. And then when we look at macros make a big difference in what your body composition is and how your body looks, right? So it's calories in versus calories out is more of a maintenance for weight loss, weight gain. And so that is important. I'd start with quality food first. I would start with eating 3 meals a day and using that plate kind of diagram to help set your day up. Does that help? Okay. Any other questions or any other hows or struggles or things that either you've kind of overcome this week and you want to share, or, all right, I see thumbs up, awesome, or something that I can help you going into the weekend with?
I have a question. Hi, Lisa.
Hi.
Hi, everyone. One thing, I mean, I've struggled with, it sounds like a lot of people do too, is just hitting the protein. And I know what protein, you know, your basics, you know, your meats and stuff like that, and sometimes in your dairy. But my biggest thing is, I guess, inspiration. Like, where do you get inspiration for even just the simple things? Because sometimes I kind of get a little tired of, you know, protein shake or something like that. That I think has been my struggle, especially recently, because it is kind of just me and my boyfriend.
Yeah.
And I mean, he will eat the bag of Doritos and beer and be fine with it. So I don't really have a lot of like kind of outlets or who to ask for or anything like that on inspiration for even just basically extra protein in my day.
Inspiration. I'm going to open this up a little bit. I have a list of go-tos, and then I have a couple of cookbooks that I'll kind of go through. I kind of have a seasonal, like a fall list of recipes that I go to, and then kind of like spring lists of recipes that I go to. So that keeps it fresher than if we just had the same thing all the time. And don't get me wrong, it's not that organized. But I feel like having 100 grams of protein and not stressing about every single other gram that you have is a pretty good strategy whenever you're feeling like you just can't have one more shake or bar, which I think is probably your body telling you that that's not the best option for you.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that helps at all, but that's kind of when you asked that, that's the first thing that came to mind. So I'm going to open it up to, does anybody else have, protein it's a struggle for a lot of people. I try to build my meals around that first and figure out what I'm going to put it in and how that's going to go. So if it's the foundation of the meal, then it automatically means that I'm going to get more than if I built the foundation of the meal around a noodle or potato or something like that.
I think meal prep is key too. Like you got to be ready to be tempted by the Doritos and be ready to be able to run to the refrigerator and grab a chicken thigh or grab some vegetables or grab something that's already done. And if you have to cook it, I mean, for me, like I cooking is not my favorite thing. Like if I wouldn't cook if it weren't for the whole starving thing, but I do it because I have to be ready. And I mean, I think the easier you can make it for yourself on the front end, particularly if there is somebody in your environment that's not necessarily following the road that you want to go in terms of the food, then for me, I got to be ready, and also just make it easy, make it as easy on yourself as you can. That's what I have tried to do.
So this is Nancy. I just wanted to share something that works for me sometimes. Is I just go on YouTube and I look for, I don't know, low carb meal or I don't know, whole food meals, and you'll find channels that have very good recipes with very good ingredients, and everything is made from scratch and they're simple. I mean, I found recipes that you can prep a meal in 20 minutes or less sometimes, and you're using quality ingredients and it's all within reach. It's all in your kitchen. It's either herbs or onions or I don't know, sweet potatoes, broccoli, eggs. So that helps. And also writing down, keeping a log of what I eat. If I eat something during the week that I feel like, okay, that sort of messed up my blood sugar, I can go back, I can see at what time I ate, what I ate, and did I drink a lot of water that day or did I not? So it's a whole combination of things. But the main thing for me, I think, and maybe this will help you guys, is always go back to your main goal. Why are you doing what you are doing? Why are you doing this for yourself? So I always take myself there, and that helps me a lot. So just my 2 cents.
Yeah,
Oh, go ahead, Connie.
okay. Is that okay? So, I love to cook, but what I found helps me is, my meal prep is, I usually grill or, pan fry a pound of salmon. I have chicken that's already cooked. I have eggs in the refrigerator, and I have canned tuna. I do have, protein shakes, but that's usually my last resort, and only if something happens in the day where, like there's chaos and I need to use that. So what that allows me to do is I can use that salmon and I can put it in a salad. I can make some kind of mix that I can put on a rice cake. The chicken, I have bone broth that I have in my refrigerator. I can make a soup. I can add that to pasta or, some kind of carb like potato. I'm trying to get away from the whole pasta thing. But, having the protein already prepared, already cooked, and in a very natural state, in a blank form, that allows me to add it and create something. So, that works for me. If I have to go to a recipe, I'm not recipe driven as much as I am, and perhaps that's because my dad was a cook, and his thing is, that's the creativity right there. A good cook finds what's in the refrigerator and makes a meal. So I know what my macros are, and I just try to stick to that. But having things that are already prepared, like protein, really helps me in that I have enough there for the 3 days, and then I can make whatever I want. And so I have a lot of variety in my life. When I buy broccoli, I've got bok choy, I've got celery, I've got onions, I've got sweet potatoes, and I've got rice, I've quinoa. That's in my pantry, so I can make whatever I want to my liking. So I don't know if that's helpful or not for anyone, but that works for me. So.
And she's a badass cook too.
Yeah, I was going to ask if she was going to have us all over when we get together. So, Bianca, did you have something?
Yeah, I guess. Well, I have a lot of like Greek yogurt and cottage cheese and egg whites and stuff, and if I'm ever kind of not, or I met everything else, but I'm like, I need a little more, then I'll just add that to stuff because I feel like those things taste good with almost anything. And but I've never actually had a problem with not meeting my protein, so I don't know if it's because I just eat a lot of that or not. But also beef jerky is very easy to add to.
Yeah. Yep. Good suggestions. All right. Anybody else? Anything that we can? I want to respect everybody's time. It's right at 8 o'clock. But if there is one more question that we want to get out there, or something that we can leave that we can help you with tonight, let's do it. Okay, awesome. You guys are great. I look forward to hearing from you. So send me the biggest takeaways from Monday and tonight, and then either a question or an action. Then I'll put you in the raffle, but I'd love to hear it. So thanks for the feedback. And then I will get you the stuff for cooking with Whitney on Monday night, which is going to be fun. All right, y'all have a good night.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, everyone.
Good night.